With us today, we have Manoj, COO of Juniper Networks. Thanks for being here, Manoj.
Great to be here. It's been a great day so far already.
All right, that's awesome. So, one thing I've always wondered is the question that people ask is what makes a good product? But what I want to ask you is what makes a great product? And how do you differentiate great from good?
It's always the perpetual dream of any product officer, the pursuit of that great product. I usually think in terms of three different buckets for that question. One is how do you anticipate the true market needs? And when you ask the customers, you may not always get the true market needs. Customers tell you what they want, but then you got to be smart enough to figure out what they really need.
Yeah.
So figuring that out, market needs, in terms of what a product category or product specifically needs to be, that's probably the number one thing. The number two thing, which is where I think people usually falter, is you got to delight. Just because functionality is there doesn't mean squat. You actually have to delight the customer.
Yeah.
If you can delight the customer, delight the end user, whoever that is, then functionality plus the delight brings a new place for the product. So you talked about what differentiates a good product from a great product. The delight, the customer delight is an aspect which makes it great. And of course, the third ingredient of the product is you've got to make money, you've got to monetize it. And if you don't make money, none of this matters.
Right.
So it's almost like the functionality, the customer delight, and the monetization capability. Those three come together, it's typically a great product.
All right. Very structured, very accurate. Let me sort of explore that a little bit. So there are two school of thoughts. There's we make something and we believe in the vision and we're going to take it to market. And then there's the customer centricity, which you touched upon on, this is what the customer thinks they need, or we do focus groups and we sort of see that. How do you strike the right balance of not being overly invested in your vision or in your technology in your case, and at the same time, not getting too biased or anchored to what you may hear customers think they need today or what you're trying to build for tomorrow?
This is the perpetual question which has been facing everyone from the beginning of the time when the first product was created for the world. It's a tough one to answer because of, the best way to substantiate that is through an example. In the days of the phone, the mobile phone, right? If you ask a Nokia or a Motorola or whatnot, you would have gotten the answer that, oh, we got to make it a smaller form factor, we got to have a flip phone, we had to have these new features, and you get a better phone. And they're not wrong. It's actually right. They're driven by what customers are asking for, they're driven by what the industry needs. But then the smartphone revolution was quite different. You kind of started thinking out of the box in a big way. And the smartphone was a computer in the hands. It's a delightful, delectable computer which does a lot of things. And it was also a phone. So the phone became almost a secondary purpose, but a necessary function. So the ability for somebody to think that there is a bigger piece which can delight customers and also provide the basic phone functionality, that wouldn't come from customers, so it has to be out of the box thinking, which is why design is an art. It's not an exact science, it's not a completely programmatic process-oriented thing. So you've got to bring both elements together. And that's why it is really, really tough to do that. Great companies have done it. I mean, the example of Apple is one. And so many examples of great companies who have great cars. Look at what Tesla has done. Building a better car is not the goal. Tesla's, again, it's also a car. It's a fantastic computer, self-driving computer, which is green because of no emissions, and it's also a car. Very similar to the smartphone concept, right? There's a wonderful computer in your hands which will do amazing things, and a phone, similarly, does a lot of things, and it's also a car. So I think that seems to be the winning thesis, at least over the last 10, 20 years, where we have seen people who are able to look at the boundaries of a problem, problem one and problem two, the boundaries of that, and then innovate there, where suddenly problem one is actually a tiny problem.
It's a great point. So let's, on the topic of delight, so Juniper Networks is in the B2B. sort of business for the most part. So most of your customers are enterprises. Most of them are CIO levels, CTO levels. How do you differentiate and bring this customer delight into the B2B marketplace, into the environment that you operate in?
So if you look at the history of Juniper Networks, goes back 25 years. The inception of the company when it was a tiny startup was, it looked at the problem of the internet. Internet was about to boom with all the web traffic and everything. And traditionally, it was software networking devices. They just couldn't keep up. So the innovation was brought silicon and ASIC technology to routing. A combination of the two, which drove Juniper to be this amazing company it is. However, there is a second phase of Juniper over the last 5-6 years, which is what I want to kind of navigate on a little bit more. The first phase was successful, but then doing the same thing again and again can only give you incremental difference. You go from 40 gig speed to 100 gig speed to 400 gig speed. That's great. It's important. You're keeping up with the pace of the internet and the demands of networking, but you're just looking at speeds and feeds.
Right.
And there came a point where that's not good enough. Right. So what the new Juniper is over the last 5-6 years, which I've been intentionally driving with the CEO, is to create networking like never before. Networking is not just about connectivity anymore. Networking should be about the experience. It should be the experience of a grandmom having a video call to the grandkid and having a flawless experience on the video call. The CEO, going through a Zoom call or a Teams call, having a very, very important business discussion, having absolutely no flaws in the experience. Look at large retail, one of our largest customers, the top retail company in the world. If you lose an hour of connectivity, that's $35 million of lost business. Or even better, think about a case where you have a 10-second issue when you're watching the 100-meter dash in the Olympic game. 10 million users not seeing that final moment. How bad that can be. So that experience is what we're driving. And this is where we have purposely, over the last 7 years, built a AI native network platform, which is constantly looking at feeds from you, Babak, on in the enterprise through the Wi-Fi. Every second, 15 or 16 data points we're collecting from the user, not just the network as a whole, each user. And we are taking the data, the telemetry, and using AI models and making sure that proactively we can solve the problem. So one of the largest ITSM providers, actually the largest ITSM provider, ServiceNow, one of the largest companies in the world, once they moved to Juniper, this new Juniper, they were able to eliminate 90% of their IT trouble tickets. 90%, because of this proactive way we can actually solve problems. So the new Juniper is all about experiences. It's also about connectivity, but that's necessary, not sufficient. Experience is the new network.
Wow, it's a fantastic answer. And great examples, actually. So we talk a lot about success stories. We all know from our experience that you learn 10 times more from stumbles. What are some examples and learnings of launch examples or product examples that did not live to full fruition of what the potential you were hoping for, and what was the learning that comes to mind for you?
I think before I jump into Juniper, I think I'll just take into consideration a 200-year-old example, right? Where there was a time for hundreds and probably multiple centuries where right from the Roman Empire till about maybe 150, 180 years ago, there was this thing called the chariots or horse carriages. That was the only means of transportation, right? You had fancier carriages, more horses, 8 horses, 4 horses, 2 horses, whatever combination. And for multiple centuries, it was all about improving it. Okay, can you put 8 horses together and get the speed, more horsepower out of it? Lighter carriages, more ornate carriages. So it was all about improving the carriage and putting more horses and a better horse, breed a better horse which can take, which can do more stuff, right? But that was the innovation for centuries and centuries and centuries till that fine moment when the automobile landed and said, well, we're going to change the game. So better carriage or a faster horse wasn't going to do it. Right. So that's the kind of the pivotal example we can all look at for all of our product journeys. in the case of Juniper, like I mentioned earlier, 25 years ago, we had this amazing inflection of the internet. We took advantage of that with the combination of silicon and routing and built the first hardware-based router, which was absolutely needed for the internet. And that was a huge success story, amazing company. But the fallacy was afterwards, okay, now we got this like fastest, big ass, fastest, high speeds and feeds router. What are we going to do next? Let's build the next generation of the high speed router. So we did that for a few iterations. And I would say at a certain point, that was giving diminishing returns. And I think that was probably the issue or the fallacy. Too long, the company stayed on that train of, okay, bigger, better, faster thing before going into thinking differently. Well, it's not just about bigger, faster anymore. It's about actual experiences where you can delight customers. So think differently. So we had a lot of those products which had, reasonable successes, but the company never moved the needle. And to move the needle, the company had to look differently. So never, this is one of the classic problems, innovator's dilemma, right? What has worked well for you, it's very tough for you to kind of unwind from that. But you always need to have this sort of, startup-ish arm for the company.
Right.
Always, every company wants to get to scale. They have to have this other, contrarian view of, how the world is going to be. And you need to foster both, because you cannot just go for everything new and shiny and destroy your base business. So you have to foster both. And at a certain tipping point, this incubation can become the next thing. So
right. Well, I mean, part of the challenge is always you gotta sort of create a sustainable growth path. So that's where you create the iterativeness of the better, faster, and it's do you see this as a hey, we need to continue to invest in R&D or innovation? Is it a matter of investment, or is it a matter of let's take bigger risks and take to market things that may not necessarily be bigger and faster but are different?
I think it's definitely all of the above, to be honest, because it's a cultural thing. People need to have a fast-fail mentality where failing is actually rewarded.
Right.
You have to take risks if you want to get something out of it. There is no risk, there's no reward. So the problem with companies once they get to a steady business is that you're adding more salespeople or sales machines, go-to-market, channels, product, quality becomes an important thing, scaling the supply chain becomes an important thing, all necessary parts of growing a business and monetizing it better. But you get too focused on the swim lanes and everybody's doing their part. And they, like I was saying in the panel, people focus on doing things right in their silos versus doing the right thing. And over a period of time, the right thing for the company changes. The true north for the company changes because everything is changing. The whole, the customer base is changing, population is changing, socio-political, everything is changing. And innovation is like, if anything, has sped up 10 times faster than like 25 years ago.
Right.
So in a scenario like that, how can it be the same thing can work always?
Right.
So you've got to have a true north which goes into something bigger than this silo-based thinking. And the CEOs and executives who can foster that culture, the contrarian thinking is given benefit of the doubt, and enough incubation to get to a point where it's validated and then becomes a product. So that is absolutely pivotal because otherwise everybody's going to die. There is a shelf life for everything.
And I want to ask one other question before we wrap up, because you touched upon it, which is, we're in 2024 where, AI has just completely changed the game in speed of innovation. And whether it comes to coding, whether it comes to CADs, whether it comes to research, how do you see this impacting, the innovation agenda? Are we going to do it faster, or you think we're going to, fill the pipeline with a lot more ideas and test them faster?
It's a fascinating time we are all living in right now. I think earlier I was talking about what makes a good product, market needs, customer delight, and monetization. If you double click on that, it all comes down to the simplicity. Like Leonardo da Vinci once said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? A simplified, simple product which delights customer always wins. So that has been the design mantra we've been always using, and simple has been defined in terms of our human interface in many ways. because what does the human want, how does the human define it to be simple has been the criteria. 6 billion people, what would they think as simple, or whatever the market target is. But now, the point which you're raising about AI brings a very new dimension to the equation. It's not just about AI as a way to speed up design. That is happening already over the last 6-7 years. You know, people are looking at AI ops, looking at AI data, like I was mentioning, data from the users and figuring out what's the best way to solve problems. People have been using AI and models and machine learning models for a while now. But with generative AI, there is a new world which is coming, which is the most human of the human attributes, which is language, is now kind of a machine domain thing. Even music. I hear music is being now created, which people cannot tell the difference between Bach's pieces and these machine-created pieces.
Right.
So in this world, you got to co-create with the machine. It's not a world where the machine is assisting you anymore. From the Industrial Revolution onwards, machines have been trying to aid, automating things, and most recently, automation has been, automating almost every mundane job, so that we are using self-help for everything. The next thing is going to be machine and users need to come work together, and sometimes you have to enable that techno-human to happen.
Right.
I think that's a fantastic time, because it's also going to be one of those challenging moments where we're going to be scared of what to do, and you have to embrace, you have to get on this bandwagon. The biggest risk is not taking the risk at all. So an AI, Gen AI, is going to transform things in a fundamental way, and it's going to make the world a better place. I don't have a dystopian view of the world.
Right.
It's going to make that techno-human, machine-human interaction get to a place where humanity is going to be still better.
Thank you.